Apollo 11 lost original SSTV master tape footage of moon landing. On July 20th, 1969, the Apollo 11 landing capsule with its crew of 2 astronauts, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, touched down on the moon. The footage has become world famous and will be preserved, most likely for the entire future of human history, as one of the most significant achievements of the species. Therefore, it's strange, and not generally known by the public, that NASA has lost their original SSTV tapes of the event. The journey and landing of Apollo 11 were filmed by the astronauts that went on said mission: Armstrong, Aldrin, and Michael Collins. For scientific purposes, the experience was recorded on a high-quality 16mm film Super 8 camera that covered the moonwalk from the window of the lunar module. For live pictures to a general audience, the signal from the television camera on the surface was broadcast live back to Earth, along with other mission data via a signal encoding known as SSTV. SSTV allows for an image to be embedded into audio data and transmitted as a radio signal. This SSTV signal was picked up on multiple telescopes on Earth, one in Goldstone, California, the other one in Parkes, Australia. Additionally, Australia provided a tracking station in Honeysuckle Creek. At the telescope facilities, a raw signal with all data, telemetry, and SSTV images was cloned into 2 branches. One branch of the signal went straight to a backup tape recorder capable of storing the incoming information at the telescope facility. The other branch immediately preceded signal and decoded SSTV images that were designated to be shown to the public. However, as the data coming in from the astronauts' cameras was incompatible with TV image broadcasting standards, a conversion had to take place. Curiously, this occurred in one of the most primitive ways imaginable. The signal was fed to a high-quality screen, capable of displaying images from the astronauts' cameras. The light emissions from the screen were recorded by a camera, putting out image data compatible with contemporary television sets. The, now TV-friendly, signal then sent from Australia via satellite to Goldstone, California, and from there via microwave transmission to the Mission Control Center. It was then only that an image signal arrived at the Mission Control Center in Houston. Here the signal was distributed further to TV stations. However, the only video from the moon landing broadcast that day was of severely worse quality than what a few technicians could witness at the ground station before any crew conversion took place. In recent years, interest in the original SSTV data recorded at tracking stations, Goldstone, Honeysuckle Creek, and Parkes has risen. However, after extensive research, no copies of the original image signal, along with mission data, have shown up. According to NASA, it is very likely that the tapes were wiped for reuse, similar to what happened to many TV shows throughout the late 1970s and the early 1980s. The loss of the Apollo 11 footage has fueled conspiracy theories, claiming that the moon landings were an elaborate hoax and that the footage was filmed in a studio. On subsequent missions of Apollos 12 through 17, NASA improved quality, and as cameras produced NTSC standard signal, there was no need for a conversion. Footage from the subsequent missions have been successfully retained by NASA, and as such are available in much higher quality than the Apollo 11 footage. This fact should put the rest at any claims that NASA conveniently lost the footage to prevent close analysis of the film, as subsequent landing footage is available for analysis of higher quality. Captain Midnight partially lost test intrusion footage of television hijacks. On April 27, 1986, HBO was televising the film The Falcon and the Snowman, and the broadcast was interrupted by a hijacker, giving himself the moniker Captain Midnight. The hijack, pulled off by satellite dealer John R. McDougal, consisted of a message protesting the expensive subscriptions HBO were charging to customers, which caused many satellite dish businesses to cease trading. While real-time footage of the incident was eventually recovered on February 10, 2013, footage of a test intrusion conducted by McDougal against HBO signal a week prior is missing. In the mid-1980s, HBO and other paid television networks like Showtime and Movie Channel began to engage in satellite signal scrambling for their cable feeds. This made viewing their channels impossible without buying an expensive descrambler, in addition to purchasing a monthly subscription of $12.95. The vast cost of investing for unscrambled programming led to a significant decline in satellite dishes being sold, putting many companies selling them out of business. Among those struggling was John R. McDougal's McDougal Electronics, who was suffering from a decreased turnover once HBO scrambled its signal on January 15, 1986. MacDougal was therefore finding difficulty staying afloat, even switching off his air conditioning to save enough money. He and others, including the Satellite Television Industry Association, began protesting the necessity of keeping satellite service safe from excessive charges. But when these fell on deaf ears, MacDougal opted for a more direct approach at challenging the situation. Aside from running MacDougal Electronics, MacDougal was also working part-time at the Central Florida Teleport Uplink Station as an operations engineer. This station also provided uplink services to satellites, which provided the means for him to jam HBO signal. On April 20th at around 12:49 a.m., MacDougal successfully hijacked the signal and placed what was being televised with a color bar test pattern for around 3 minutes before HBO increased its uplink transmission power to regain control. The incident was of seemingly little concern to HBO, as only a select viewers were witness of this hijack. This intrusion would have never been reported to the FCC, were it not for the second one that occurred a week later. On April 27th, HBO were planning to air the film The Falcon and the Snowman. Meanwhile, MacDougal was working at Central Florida Teleport, becoming the only engineer in attendance at 6 p.m. With no witnesses present, MacDougal began composing a message on a color bar test pattern. Once he was finished, he aimed Teleport's transmission dish towards the satellite Galaxy 1, which was transmitting the HBO signal. Thus, just as The Falcon and the Snowman was starting, the film was suddenly overridden by the following message. "Good evening, HBO, from Captain Midnight. $12.95 a month? No way. Showtime/movie channel? Beware." MacDougal had given himself the moniker of Captain Midnight, in reference to the film On the Air Live with Captain Midnight. The hijack itself lasted 4.5 minutes, although its duration was nearly cut short when an HBO technician increased its company's uplink transmission power from 125 to 2,000 watts. While this nearly overrode the intrusion, the effort to regain control was thwarted when MacDougal increased his power in response. As a further power increase could potentially have damaged Galaxy 1, HBO ended its control battle, with MacDougal shortly ending the pirate transmission out of concern of being caught. The incident made mainstream news, while other television hijackers, including those involved in the Southern Television broadcast intrusion and Max Headroom hijackings, would remain at large. MacDougal was not so lucky. Following the intrusion, the FCC began a wide investigation to determine the culprit and narrow their search down to 3 prime suspects. One of them was MacDougal. Further, MacDougal was overheard confessing to the jamming on a payphone off Interstate 75 by a Wisconsin accountant. Eventually, MacDougal surrendered to authorities, where he was charged with illegally operating a satellite uplink transmitter. He made a plea bargain that saw him be fined $5,000, be on unsupervised probation for a year, while also having his amateur radio license suspended for 1 year. While MacDougal's motivations were seemingly clear, some within the media were concerned that the hijack was a form of domestic terrorism, with Showtime Vice President Stephen Schultz deeming it as video terrorism. While the October 1986 edition of Mother Jones magazine agreed with this, it will also note that the security flaws of satellite communication systems the intrusion advertently exposed, particularly the consequences of jamming. National security was also a concern, with the Pentagon satellites notably lacking any form of defense against jamming. In response, Congress passed the Electronic Communications Privacy Act of 1986, which converted satellite hijacking from a misdemeanor to a felony. In 2011, MacDougal stated that he had no regrets about conducting the hijack itself. However, he felt that his motivations behind it were misunderstood and that the intrusion was intended as a polite message for HBO rather than a malicious attack. Decades following the incident, the real-time footage of the second intrusion was missing, with the only viewable media being screenshots of the message. However, on February 10, 2013, Kenneth Burns uploaded the full hijack to YouTube. He explained that at age 15 he had intended to watch The Falcon and the Snowman and was irritated that the recording was compromised. However, knowing its historical significance, he kept the tape for nearly 27 years before making it publicly available. In contrast, footage of the first intrusion has never been recovered. Considering it aired well past midnight, it is extremely unlikely to have been recorded by the few viewers that witnessed it. The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, lost band Leisure World California segment of Late Night Talk Show. The Daily Show is an American late-night talk show and news satire program that premiered on Comedy Central on July 22, 1996. Over the many years the show has aired, rather impressively given its sometimes controversial nature, only one segment is confirmed to remain unreleased. During a panel appearance at the Paley Center for Media in 2008, comedian and The Daily Show correspondent Stephen Colbert said that they had filmed a segment at the historic Leisure World retirement community in Seal Beach, California, which had first opened in 1962. The Daily Show was interested in the residents' current efforts to have Leisure World incorporated as a town. This had led the likewise unincorporated community surrounding them to worry about being assimilated into Leisure World in turn. According to Colbert, his idea was to draw a comedic parallel between this situation and Nazi Germany's pre-war claims on their neighbors, implying that Leisure World was ambitious for the glory of the grandfatherland. To that end, the show segment on the peaceful, pleasant seaside retirement community was to be scored with Wagner. Footage of inoffensive retirees was edited to reassemble a goose-stepping march, and community leader Bert Hack was naturally presented as a Hitler analog. Colbert even managed to trick Hack into making a gesture reminiscent of the Nazi salute on camera. On learning of these plans, Hack, a retired lawyer, quickly sued to block them, on the grounds among others that the crew had claimed they were from CNN and not Comedy Central. The Daily Show's producers say this is partially untrue. They don't lie about their affiliation, but given they're trying to pose as serious interviewers, they do avoid giving it away if at all possible, leaving room for assumptions. Eventually, an out-of-court settlement was reached in which everyone agreed that segment would never be aired. Nothing else is known about the segment. Colbert implies that it was finished, so likely Comedy Central still has it in their archives, but due to the legal agreement, it's unlikely to ever be released. Game Boy Color Body Paint Event. Lost video of promotional event for Nintendo Portable Console. The Game Boy Color is an 8-bit handheld console made by Nintendo. The Color serves as an upgrade for the original Game Boy and the 4th best-selling system of all time. While the console is remembered well by its audience, there exists a forgotten event where Nintendo painted college students' swimsuit-clad bodies to advertise the Game Boy Color. In March 1999, video game news articles started reporting on an event Nintendo was doing for the Game Boy Color. This event was an all-day beach event with music and Game Boy Color prizes. However, the event was mostly infamous for college students having their bodies painted in colors of the new Game Boy Color units. The event was mostly described by these news articles as strange, like the honey dipping event they did for the launch of Banjo-Kazooie. The event was recorded and broadcast on the web via Real Player G2 by web broadcasting company Media on Demand's InternetBroadcast.com service. This video was also broadcasted a month before Slamfest 99, a promotional event for the release of Super Smash Bros. Was live-streamed. The Game Boy Color body paint event languished in obscurity for decades after its broadcast and initial talk by news articles and magazines. This event will be brought up again in 2023 on the site Lemmy.world when user Bozo talks about their research on the event and finding photos of the event from an old Game Informer magazine. They also revealed that a link will take you to a Newsstream article, and clicking on a non-archived image will allow you to download a .ram file. The file isn't the video but rather metadata that directs Real Player to stream the video from the URL contained within it. Unfortunately, their trail went cold as the Wayback Machine did not have anything including the video from the subdomain archived. As of 2024, despite being referenced numerous times, the video from the event has never resurfaced online and is unlikely to do so. The Graham Norton Show. Lost Russell Brand outburst footage for British comedy talk show. In mid-June 2012, during the taping of an episode of The Graham Norton Show, a heated exchange occurred between host Graham Norton and guest Russell Brand. After Norton brought up Brand's ex-wife Katy Perry, who had only recently divorced Brand, saying that he thought Brand had been very dignified about the divorce. Ignoring the statement, Brand turned to the audience for a moment, and then lashed out at Norton, saying that he had stabbed Brand in the back, and saying that his mother was upset when he dragged up his marriage, going on to blame Norton for making his mother cry when he was simply promoting a film, and claiming that he now saw Norton as that sort of person. Norton then quickly explained that Perry had been on the show the week beforehand, and said that if he didn't ask, that it would have been weird, which Brand mocked while continuing to berate him. Norton apologized shortly after. However, Brand later made a vague reference to the incident when he met the Dalai Lama later the same week, saying that someone had been rude to him recently. The Dalai Lama advised Brand to forgive the person for their wrongdoings, with Brand questioning that he could forgive the human being but still resist the action. The Dalai Lama answered simply, "That is right." Despite the incident receiving international news coverage, when the episode aired on June 15th of that year, the entire confrontation had been cut from the broadcast. The show's publicist, Mary Collins, has stated that the scene was cut for quality reasons, and not because of the confrontation that had occurred. Although many believe otherwise, as of yet no footage of the incident has been released. Thanks for watching, guys, I really appreciate it. Those were just some examples of lost media of real events I thought were very interesting. I'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya!